Welcome, everybody, to the first ever Best Damn Pod in the Land. I'm excited to be back with you. It's been a little while. If you noticed, we rebranded. It used to be the Buckeye Blitz. I am your host, Chad Stryker, with our newly minted co-host, Dan Dipchak. Dan, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited, ready to go. Share some wisdom.
Sweet. I'm glad to have you. I'm excited for this adventure. If you guys didn't notice, he's got a Ohio State. Tell us about your shirt, man.
It's just it's the home jersey for the boys and hockey jersey, hockey sweater. That was my ticket through college, so I still pay homage to the rink rats, and I think our women's team is more excited than our men's team right now, but support them whenever I can.
Seems to be. I think there was a post the other day. Somebody said that the women's coach should also coach the men's team, and maybe we'd be doing a little bit better. So who knows?
Yeah, who knows? They've got it going though.
Yeah, they do, man. I hope any kind of Ohio State sport, it's great. I think that it's fun. It's good for the university. And then, I read the other day that I think Ohio State has the biggest amount of like scholarship sports of any team in the Big Ten, like the variety of them.
Yeah, and 36, I think we're up to,
36.
Right?
Yeah. Because there was some question around Bjork, maybe that we're getting off topic, but maybe reducing the number of scholarships sports to like help the football team a little bit or whatever, because he said football is king. So
yeah, it's interesting with this, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds in it, but if football separates from the NCAA, what impact would that have on Title IX and the number of scholarships that have to be doled out in order to keep things, kosher with those rules? It's an interesting question that maybe we can dive into another time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That'd be a great one. Yeah. And I do want to give a shout out to Kevin Noon from Buckeye Huddle before we get too far into this. He's been a huge help to Dan and I, like being open to messages and helping us get just technically what we need, suggestions for what we need, suggestions for even all the way down to lighting. So Kevin, I appreciate you, man. You've been super helpful and you're a good friend, and I do appreciate you very much. So thank you.
Huge shout out to Kevin.
Yeah, he's been great, man. Like I can't say enough about him and how just great he's been and how open he's been to helping people that like are just trying to get started. So thank you, Kevin. So getting into our actual pod now, I'm juiced for the season. I'm excited. College football is by far my favorite sport, with a close nod to baseball. Like I played baseball, so I love baseball. But there's that smell like you get in the air in late August, and you can just feel it. You can feel that energy. But I'm already ready for it. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for this season?
Well, it's changed in the last 5 weeks, right? I mean,
yeah.
on December 30th, it wasn't something we were looking forward to necessarily. But man, right now, 11, is that a number?
11.
I mean, I'm stoked. I'm excited. And, it's possibly the greatest January we've had as a program, all things considered. It's like the light bulb went off. Somebody finally figured it out. I think Ryan's probably taking advantage of the lame duckness of Gene and kind of said, like, listen, this is what we need to do. And he's making it happen. So it's exciting. I mean, I can't, what are we down to? 297 days?
Yeah, it's under 300 now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I couldn't be more excited. What about you?
I am juiced. Actually, right before we came on the air, like just minutes, they announced the spring game tickets go on sale. It's actually this Friday, February 9th, which is on track with what they normally do. Normally, they just let you know a little bit further ahead of time. But yeah, I think tickets start at $10 and go up from there. So I love to go to the spring game. I take my family and stuff, and we go every year. And I think the only year we haven't gone recently was the COVID year. So yeah, I'm the 11 is great. I'm 10 out of 10. I can't wait. I don't know. And I really tried to go back in my memory banks and think if I've ever been this excited, and I thought maybe the 2015 year after that 2014 title run, and Cardale was back, Zeke was back, but Joe Bosa was back. You know, a lot of that talent was back. I thought for sure like back to back, just put Ohio State on the national championship trophy already. And then we lost to Michigan State with the windmill kicker guy. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. They've gone all in. I don't know what more there is to say about it. This is they're cashing in their chips. They're ready to go. I'm excited. So that Akron game being I got my undergrad in Akron. I'll probably go to that game, even though it won't be much of a game, but I'll go nonetheless just to be there and be part of it. But
Yeah, get a first glimpse of what things should look like, which could be changing. I
yeah,
think we had an idea, but if Bill O'Brien's on his way out, then we have to figure out who's going to be there. So
I I'm still 50-50, man. I know that this isn't really part of our talking points, but I feel like if we get to Friday and nothing has happened and they're still interviewing other people, more than likely it's not a slam dunk.
yeah,
So and it feels like initially Boston College was in this big hurry to get this done, and all of a sudden they said, well, maybe we can just slow our roll a little bit and just see if there's anybody else. And while I know that there's a lot of things medically and some other things with his son that make sense, everybody was saying it would be done Monday. Here we are, lunchtime Tuesday, and it's been pretty quiet. And then now you're seeing more and more people saying, maybe not such a done deal.
yeah. I think
And
there's something to BC maybe slowing the roll a little bit. They didn't see a huge jump into the portal, so they maybe
mm-hmm,
figured they had a little bit of time. You have to think that existing staff, whether they have jobs or not in a week or so, they're doing what they can to hold that program together. The Bill O'Brien thing, man, I keep going back and forth on it. Like, on the surface, I think it's a no-brainer. If this is about, his son and a medical situation with his family, then, obviously, Godspeed to them. But it's kind of hard not to step back and question, okay, well, why wasn't it an issue when he went to Alabama for 2 years? Why wasn't that
mm-hmm,
an issue when he went to Texas? The more I learn about it, I think his son's actually in a facility
mm,
for full-time care. So it sounds like, they've maybe been back there. And I think he's 21 now. So, who knows, maybe things are changing, but, I'm hopeful because I love the hire. I think he's exactly what that room needed. I think we needed an adult in the room. I think we needed somebody that was a little bit more fiery and that
yeah.
would, hold his own against Ryan when it came to a, decision that needed to be made. But I certainly don't know where we'd go otherwise if we do lose him. So that would not be very fun.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't want to lose Bill O'Brien. I was, I told you when we talked the other day. Initially, I was all in on Dan Mullen until I found out Ryan Day and Dan Mullen
Yeah.
don't like each other. But yeah, I get it. Either way, one of the aspects that somebody mentioned that I didn't even think about. I think it might have been one of my buddies I was talking to is that Bill O'Brien also was going to coach quarterbacks, which was going to take that off of Ryan Day's plate, which is another interesting additive to this. If you were going to go get someone else, do they also coach quarterbacks, or does that push off on Ryan Day again or someone else? So we'll keep an eye on it, and if something breaks, we'll definitely get it out there on our feed, so on Twitter and Instagram. But I'll flip us back to kind of being excited for the year. Has there ever been another year that you've been this amped? I think I mentioned earlier, like the 2015 season was something that came to mind. But is there anything that thinking back through the years that you've been a Buckeye fan forever?
Not like this. The 15 season, obviously, we were coming off of that championship. So I think that kind of lessens the juice a little bit. I mean, sure, it's
Mm-hmm.
great to be on top of the world and want to go back to back and everything else like that. And it certainly, was heartbreaking, in that Michigan State game and to see how that quarterback controversy was handled all year.
Yeah.
Um, So obviously was excited going into that season, probably more excited about coming off of the championship than going into that one.
Mm.
But this one, considering everything that's gone on over the last 3 years, not winning the game, dealing with that scandal that's come out, and knowing what's happened now behind the scenes for at least 2 years, and then just seeing them, hoist that trophy in January, you couple that with what we were able to do in the portal and through recruiting in January. I've never been more excited for a season. It's all steam ahead, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I went back into the recesses of my brain because I was really trying to think, have I ever been this excited for a season? And I mentioned that 15 year, and then I thought back to the 2006 2007 team. So 2006 we got housed by Florida, and I still remember this day watching ESPN and them saying, well, you should already have the OH inscribed on the trophy. You can't run on them, you can't throw on them, this and that. And then Florida, the speed that Florida had, and then to get all the way back to the Natty the next year against LSU, I really thought that 2007 team, I thought they were going to get it done. And so I was excited for that year because I had graduated in 06, and so from college, and I was getting ready to go into my master's program, so I was going to do it through Ohio State, and so I was like, "Oh, this is so great," So I was really, really excited. But the depth that this team has, and then the transfer portal, what they were able to bring in, even though they only brought in 6 transfers. 11D, like you said,
Yeah.
11D.
Yeah. And I'm not, they say 6. Okay, so Sane went to class for 2 years, so he's technically a transfer, but I would have liked to have seen him, I think a couple of the rating services gave us credit for him in the 24 class, but at the end of the day, who cares?
Right.
The ratings are an incredibly political game.
Yeah.
They're fun to follow. They give us a lot of talking points, and it's really fun right now to see that arms race between Tim Walton and Brian Hartline to see who's going to have the best room on the team.
I think they just need to arm wrestle.
What Tim Walton's doing right now is just it's borderline silly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. How would you like to be Perry Eliano right now? You get relieved of duties, and then in comes Caleb Downs, and now you've got all these 2024 and 2025 5-star kids coming in, and you're going, okay, guess yeah. So.
Makes you wonder how we missed out on Coy Parrish out of Minnesota. I know he's a hometown kid, but still, man, we shouldn't be losing, a kid like that to Minnesota.
I was so after watching the All-American game and the way he balled out, I was like, oh man, because I wasn't too like Minnesota. You're not too sure, I know some other great kids that have come out of Minnesota, James Laurinaitis, but I wasn't. I was like, okay, well, he's a 4-star out of Minnesota, best player in his state. It was the same like Keenholz, best player in the state, but the state has like 10 people in it. So, no shot, not shooting a shot at anybody here.
I watched when he was on his visit, I watched his high school film, and the kid loves to bring it. And I was really, really excited about us getting him because he just seemed to play with a chip on his shoulder with an attitude.
For sure.
He showed it in an All-American game, and he shot up to, I think, being the second-ranked safety in the class on a lot of boards after that weekend. So
yeah. Maybe you hope he ends up in the portal and you can bring him in to fill in after Downs is done in 2 years, but we'll see. But yeah, that was a miss. It really was, and there were so many misses in that safety recruiting cycle. Perry didn't even bring in his own like cousin or whatever. So
KJ?
Well, I'm not dogging on Perry. It's just I just happen to think like if you were him and you're seeing Tim Walton just bring in all these defensive backs, you're like, man, what was going on? So,
and I thought Perry did a nice job. I think year over year. Year one was a nightmare across the board with our secondary between injuries, and I just think they weren't familiar with the scheme. But year over year, I thought Latham and Josh they improved greatly. So I was a little surprised, but at the end of the day, it's about recruiting.
Yeah, there was a lot to that year. Absolutely. New scheme. And then you were asking players to do things that they really weren't, they weren't recruited or cut out to do. And then you're asking people like Cam Brown, who was injury prone anyways, and they just expected a lot out of him as a senior in the cornerback room, and he just didn't give it to you. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot I could do a deep dive into that, but we'll
Yeah.
just save that for another day. But all right, so staying with this class, staying with this year, most person you're most excited to see at the spring game, besides yourself sitting in the sun. I mean,
Well, I think you need to understand how I view the spring game. I mean, the spring games have become nothing more than kind of glorified flag football games a little bit.
they have.
So I would love to see the battle in the trenches. I just don't think we're going to in that setting. So really, the only positions that you can really get a good feel for the competitiveness and the matchup and the scheme and the talent is our receivers against our DBs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have a feeling that's going to be a pretty heated afternoon between those guys because the competition level is just off the chain.
Oh, for sure.
What a recruiting pitch, right? That Hartline and Walton have right now is just, hey, come and play DB. You're going against first round receivers,
The best of the best, yeah.
And now it's come and play receiver. You're going against first round DBs. So every day in practice. So it's a beautiful thing that they've got going on. I won't be surprised if we don't get a little bit of a title change and a bump in pay for Mr. Walton here if we hang on to this class and see it on the field. So,
yeah, they may change it to secondaries coach and like assistant defensive coordinator or something like that. I could just like Heartline. It's just a title so you can pay him more. Yeah. Yeah. I in my thoughts, I'm excited to see obviously Caleb Downs, Will Howard, Quinton Junkins, JJ Smith, all the exciting additions, because you like to see the skill position players. You do, like to get a look at them. And then for me, it came down to two people. It's Will Howard, because we're only going to go as far as Will Howard will take us. We saw that last year where there was a lot of talent on that team. I mean, a lot. And you had Marvin Harrison Jr., who is otherworldly, and I still am struggling to see how we replace his production, even though we have a lot of really great receivers. No slight to the receivers we have, but some of the catches he made were like he's like half out of bounds and has a foot and somehow inbounds, and ridiculous. Anyways, but McCord, obviously transfers to Syracuse, so we're bringing in Will Howard. So we're only going to go as far as Will Howard will take us. But the other person that I'm most interested in is Seth McLaughlin. And the reason is I think he makes the line better, but does he make it on par? So, you're bringing Josh Simmons back, Donovan Jackson's back, you bring McLaughlin in at center. But the whole right side's kind of a mystery to me because I don't think Josh Fryer should play right tackle. I just don't. I think
he wants to.
Yeah, he played better at right guard even the year before, like as the sixth man. So the right side of the offensive line is a mystery to me. I mean, maybe they're hoping Tegra Shabola is ready to roar this year in his third year. He was a redshirt sophomore last year, or redshirt freshman last year. So it'll be a redshirt sophomore this year. Usually that's the year if the light bulb's gonna come on, it does. So, but yeah. So for me, Seth McLaughlin, like, how does that look? Does he tie everything together? Where does Carson Hinsman fit into this? And of course Jeremiah Smith, and then the player that I just so badly want to see all year, and I hope he's the second tight end, is Jelani Thurman, because that dude is a freak, man. Like he is because you could split him out in the slot. He just can do things other tight ends can't. He reminds me, and I'm going to take this away. Do you remember Kellen Winslow Jr. when he played at Miami? Yeah, and how devastating he was. Yeah, and how you couldn't cover him with a linebacker, but if you put a DB on him, he was too small. He's just one of those tweeners, and yeah. So that hopefully that answers the question. It's Seth McLaughlin and a little bit Jelani Thurman. So
Yeah, the McLaughlin thing is interesting. I mean, 26 starts at Bama. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's enough for me.
Yep.
At center, I know that he had his yips in the championship game. Apparently,
Yes,
there
that's a good way to put it.
there may or may not have been. And that's kind of what he attributed it to, right? I mean, I think I heard him compare it to putting or free throws or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
or both. And he basically had the yips.
Yep.
And I heard there might have been an injury there or something like that, but I'm not worried about that. Obviously, it's what all the Alabama folks. I live down in Nashville, so I'm stuck in SEC country, and they like to tell you everything that's wrong with the players that they no longer feel good about, and why they're going to, suck for you, and can't believe you took that guy, and hopefully he'll be hoisting the trophy here pretty soon. As far as the rest of the line goes, yeah, I mean, I think Fryer's got to move inside. Put Montgomery. It would be great to see Tegra, because he's got a nasty streak to him that we.
Yeah, he does. He's a big kid
like
too.
He's missing, on that line. So I just want to see some of that. I don't know if we'll see that in the spring game, but we need that nastiness back on that O line.
Well, I read where Tegra, I think he has like a 7'4" wingspan, like something crazy, like just a little bit smaller than DeJuan Jones.
Yeah.
And that's big. And he's a big dude, and he does have a nasty streak. I think they have some pieces over there because, Carson Hinsman was a guard. He came in as a guard and they moved him to center. So could he slide back to guard?
They're going to have to find time in his podcast schedule, right?
Yeah. Yeah. After he got in trouble. Yeah. Or supposedly didn't get in trouble. I don't know what happened there. I don't know. I'd have to talk to him to know. All right. So what player on offense and defense this year do you think makes the biggest impact? So let's start with offense. Who's your guy? Who makes the biggest impact for you that's gonna change the game? And I'll just start off with, I did not choose Jelani Thurman because I'm not sure where he's going to be in the rotation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at risk of being, accused of being master of the obvious, I mean, it's got to be that QB position, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you just made the assumption, and I think the rest of Buckeye Nation is making the assumption. And listen, it's fair to make that assumption that Will Howard was brought in here to be the quarterback in the start. And I'm going to probably get the first eye roll of our tenure together. I'm never going to count out Devin Brown.
Okay.
I'm just not. I just love the kid's fire and the moxie. Now he's got to stay healthy. I think if he stays healthy and shows well in that Cotton Bowl, we probably bring in like another, Tristan Gebbia type quarterback.
I agree with you.
That room. But with him getting hurt and Will Howard being available, I think it's going to be a competition. Worst case scenario, they push each other really, really hard. I don't think anything's going to be handed to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Full disclosure, I followed Devin Brown's career from probably the time that he was in high school. He actually played for Joe Germain as a sophomore and junior in high school out in Arizona. Joe was 3 years behind me at Mason Mountain View High School out there in Arizona. And so just that connection made me, pay attention to what he did and the way he went up to Copper Canyon in Utah and didn't shy away from the challenge. I love the kid's moxie. So,
yeah, okay.
I think our room needs it. But, let's be real. Will was brought in for a reason. So he will be, if indeed he takes over the starting job, I think he's going to have the biggest impact just because of what we witnessed last year. We were a quarterback away from being a national champs last year. Despite the problems we had on the offensive line and everything else like that, we were a quarterback away from winning the national championship.
If CJ came back last year, that's a natty.
Yeah.
100%. Oh, yeah. Interesting. So do you have a picture of burning boats in your background since you like Devin Brown so much?
I don't, but I did love that tweet.
Yeah.
I mean, that fired me up when I saw it. I'm rooting for the kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love the moxie. I love the competitive fire. I think if our quarterback last year had it, we'd have won.
Yep, I think so too. All right. So on offense, I went with somebody that I don't know. This is just something that I just have this gut feeling. It's Brandon Ennis in the slot because you're going to have Igbuka back, and I expect him to have a monster year if he stays healthy. And Tate is definitely an outside receiver. And I know they moved Marv around a little bit, but Brandon Ennis is your like prototypical slot receiver if he can beat out Jaden Ballard. I have not forgotten about Jaden Ballard because that dude can fly. Now, coming out of spring, we'll see what happens. He's still with the team. I live near Massillon, and so I saw him play in high school a few times. And that kid, I mean, he's fast. He's like Jamison Williams fast.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the two, like, their trajectory seems similar. Like, they both have great straight line speed, but there just seems to be something, with Brian Hartline that I don't know what it is. Maybe it's not clicking. Maybe I don't want to speculate because he's a really good kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it's Brandon Ennis. I think he's primed for a breakout sophomore year. I think he's your true, inside slant guy. Wes Welker. I don't want to make that too much of a comparison, but I think he in the slot makes a lot of sense.
I get Hines Ward and Jarvis Landry vibes from him in the slot.
Fair enough.
And which is great. I think he plays with that fire and that chip. I wish they would have let him return punts last year. I know they were trying to maintain that. I don't know. He probably burned his red shirt with special teams play, right? I would think.
Yeah, he's going to be a sophomore. Yeah, they didn't redshirt him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one name you didn't mention there, and I mean, I was on the fence about Emeka coming back. I love that he came back just because you got that veteran presence in the receivers room. But man, to just slot J.J. Smith in there with Carnell and Brandon, that is scary. And
so I'm not saying it
more 4 wide because of that. I hope we do.
That would be great. Get out of the 12 personnel a little bit, but I'm not saying it can't happen. I just think a lot of times, and I think this about the quarterbacks too, because the game has changed so much. It's tough. I mean, I know he's coming from IMG, so they're playing the best of the best, or South Florida Express, excuse me, and. I don't know. We'll see. That's all I'm going to say. God, goodness, you think about it, like Marv didn't even play as a freshman other than like the Rose Bowl. And, Chris Olave played against that huge game against Michigan as a freshman, but it's a tough jump just, physically. And then one of the things I kind of even noticed about Carson Hinsman last year, it's a big difference from playing from 9 or 10 games to going to play 14 or 15. And like your legs get tired. It's a lot, and you're in school. There's a lot you're balancing. And I know you would know, you played hockey, and there's just a lot that goes into being a college athlete. Now things are different now. They are. Online classes have changed a lot of things for a lot of people, even including myself. So, but yeah. So what about defense? Who's your guy?
If Sonny gets moved down to linebacker like he should, I think he has a Will Anderson, Isaiah Simmons type impact on this defense. I'm worried that's going to be the most frustrating part of the year when the dust settles, is that we're not going to see him turn loose like we keep hearing about. But I mean, if he sniffs a French fry, the guy puts on 10 pounds. They've got to move him up closer to the line of scrimmage. I think he'd be ideal for that jack position that Knowles loves. But I think LJ's won that battle for now.
Yeah.
And Knowles kind of gave in to not pushing that. But I think if Sonny moves down to the line of scrimmage and goes to a linebacker position, I think he's a game changer. Absolute game changer for us.
Fair enough, man. I don't disagree in the slightest. Yeah. When you said he smells a French fry and put on 10 pounds, that seems like the way that things have gone for him. And it definitely makes sense. His frame seems to want to add weight. So, and I know that when I was listening, I think it might've been Berm that was saying like, it's hard for him to like maintain that weight, so makes sense for me. And I think you and I talked about this one other time, like it's Tyleik Williams. I think he got snubbed for all like maybe second team All-American last year. I really felt like he had a monster year. He played like the most snaps of any of the defensive linemen and the most ever in his career. It's like the light came on. He's like that game wrecker, 300-pounder that just makes things happen in the middle. And I think that they needed him back badly, with Mike Hall jumping to the NFL. And it can only pave the way for more good things for Hero Canoe, Jason
Mhm.
Moore, and my favorite signee from last year, which was Cade McDonald, because he's another one of those players like Tyleek that is over 300 pounds and moves really well.
Yeah.
I always lean to the I guess linemen. I'm more intrigued by some of that, and then kind of honorable mention to Jermaine Matthews. I think he is poised to be like the next guy to, I'm going to call it the Sean Wade.
Yeah.
Because I think he's going to play a lot more this year. Maybe not as like a full time starter, but with Hancock being kind of the nickel corner, nickel safety hybrid thing that Jim Knowles does. I think Jermaine Matthews has a big year, and I think he contributes a lot. And I don't think people are talking about him enough. And
Yeah, and I think he needs to have a big year, and I think he needs to get on the field because the vibe I get from him on
he's
social
gone if he
media
doesn't. Yeah.
is he's gone if he doesn't. I mean, he did not he was not shy about posting, to getting that bag and getting that no
Yeah.
money and everything else like that. But it seems like he's still all in, which is great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's that what we're about to get into with that secondary, with the way that Walton's recruiting. I mean, it's going to be hard to keep everybody happy. But in this day
Yeah.
and age, you need to overload.
Yeah.
You don't know who's going to leave and when.
Yeah. Well, the cream will rise to the top. That's my thing. So
Yep.
yeah. All right. So what position group, if you have one, are you most concerned about?
I mean, I think the obvious is the O line, just because of
Okay.
what we saw most recently. I try to take that into consideration. I still don't understand why we did what we did in that Cotton Bowl. I mean, to move Matthew Jones over to center when he'd never played center before, that I mean, that's not a position that you try somebody at for the first time in a top 10 matchup against an SEC
Well,
team.
I'll say this though. Matthew Jones was like the number 2 center in the country when they brought him in, when he
Yeah, but
signed. He was a center.
Did he play a snap of center though in college for us?
I think he had a handful, but
Yeah.
rubbish time, garbage time, and maybe in a spring game or something.
Yeah.
But no, not against Missouri and their speed. No, nothing like that.
Yeah. And it's just, you got feedback that he didn't know the calls and all that other kind of stuff. And so it's the O line for sure. I mean, we're 2 or 3 deep at every position.
Yeah.
Everywhere else. But that O line, Fry's got to bring them together. And I think he will. I think that, it's his 3rd year in, it's his 3rd off season. I think he's going to get them to where they need to be. And I think we have a lot more talent there than people, have given us credit for. But those guys need to step up and start producing because it's there for them to take.
Yeah. So what do you think about that Fozzie kid, Tulioko, or Trapio, that's how you say it. Trapio.
Yeah, I think
if he enters the portal.
I think the running joke is that Hafley, slid Ryan Day's business card in his locker on his way out of town. I don't know. I mean, he hasn't jumped in yet, so that's interesting. He's got a lot of ties. His family has a lot of ties to BC. It was sort of like the Drake May thing with North Carolina, where they're kind of like the first family of Tar Heel Nation. The May family is. My understanding is that he's got a lot of deep ties to BC as well.
Legacy, maybe. I think his dad played there.
Maybe.
Yeah,
and then also, if he was to jump into the portal, don't be surprised if he ends up at Notre Dame.
Yeah,
just because
I could
of that,
see.
That Catholic education and setting and everything else like that.
Yeah.
So,
I could see it. I just wondered what your take on it was. This is the reason I asked, and I'm going on a little bit off of what we discussed, is I really want to move Josh Simmons back to right tackle because I think that's a better play for him. I think he's a little bit lean for a left tackle unless he's bulked up. And so my dream was to get a stud left tackle. I know we're not going to now. Unless something crazy happens this summer and for the second transfer portal window. But I just wondered what you thought of Trapio. And he is a right tackle.
Yeah. I mean, I think if he enters, you take him. I mean, you
Yeah,
can never have enough depth.
yeah.
He is a right tackle over there. He wasn't playing on the left side.
I think he did play a little bit on the left side, but I believe I read the last 2 years he's been at right tackle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you know, I wouldn't mind, let's say we don't get him. I still wouldn't mind seeing Simmons get moved over to the right side and have somebody like a Montgomery step up on the left and move, Fryer in the guard or, Hinsman in the guard. Because I do think, as well as Simmons played last year, he did struggle, and I think he's still adapting to that left side. Like he had never played on the left side before, apparently,
Yeah.
before last year. So
No, the kick step's different. Yeah.
Yeah.
The first movement's different. Everything's different. Hand placement's different. Yeah. So I don't know. That was just my thought. I just wondered if, I know everybody's really high on Luke Montgomery, but as a, true sophomore, it's a lot to, I could see him playing guard this year. Absolutely. And then I actually read an article, which was really, I guess it was really thought provoking, that said that they might make him a center because he's so athletic, and they like a pulling center, for a trap, or, he's just really quick on his feet for a big guy. And it kind of made me think of Luke Whippler.
Yep.
When he stepped in. Harry Miller was the same way. Harry Miller was incredibly fleet of foot. So anyways, so my position group, flipping back to what I asked you, besides the offensive line, and so I've harped on this all year, actually, and I know, and I kept telling everybody, like, I know we're worked up about the offensive line because of Missouri. It's the linebackers, the linebacker depth, and I don't like to bash kids, and so I'm not bashing, but Simon was not a full-time starter, hasn't been a full-time starter since the 21 season, when we couldn't stop the pitch to the right or left against Oregon. And then you have CJ Hicks coming in for Steele Chambers, and Steele was manageable. He understood the reads. He was good at filling, for a converted running back. But the plays that I've seen CJ Hicks, it seems like the speed of the game catches up with him. Like his angles, and I remember thinking this about Josh Proctor a couple of years ago too. Really talented, relies a lot on his speed, but the angles that he took were seemingly odd or not right. And there were a couple other instances, not just with Proctor, but in the secondary, where that happened. And I just wondered, like, we have Gabe Powers behind Cody Simon, who hasn't seen a rep really, because we don't really rotate there because we only play two of them. And if CJ Hicks isn't like going to work out, you have Nigel Glover you brought in from Northwestern, who I don't know. I just don't know what we have there. And I think that's what scares me. Simon's solid. I'm not questioning that. I'm glad he came back, because otherwise, okay, we're definitely in the transfer portal for somebody. I don't know. It really, I shouldn't say I don't know, because I do know. It concerns me. I like the idea of bringing Sonny down, but he's never played linebacker, so we don't even know what that would look like. It's just, there's a lot of questions at linebacker for me, and probably just as many as you have for the offensive line. I don't know your thoughts about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, linebackers definitely would be the group I'd select on the defensive side of the ball as well. In that Missouri game, when CJ was out there, it was kind of an aha moment, right? Because we're all wondering, 5-star, I think our top guy in that class.
Yep, absolutely.
I think I just lost my screen.
I got you still.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm just going to keep talking. Yeah. So, I don't think that he's adapted to the speed of the game, and his assignment, integrity is poor. So I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see him on the field this next year, any more than we did this year.
Okay.
I think Simon is going to be just fine. I liked what we saw out of him last year, and I think if he's out there on the field more full time, I think he's going to blossom. And then, how I feel about Sonny. We just need him.
Yeah.
We need him on
Yeah.
the field and doing all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that. Like the thing about Sonny is, if they maybe played him at the jack, maybe if they actually use a jack position this year, that would make sense because then he's can rush the passer. I think he could cover tight ends. He did some coverage last year, um, so that would be cool. All right, we're gonna wrap with this because I think we both are on a little bit of a time crunch now.
All right.
Who does Will Howard's game most remind you of? And quarterbacks for say, and I didn't go back very far. I said 10 years. So I thought about doing 20 years, but that opens up way too many things. And so who does he remind you of last 10 years comparison? Let's do a comp just for fun.
Well, I'm going to take a different approach because I know what you're going to be coming with, and I agree with you 100%. I'm going to tell you who I hope his impact mirrors
Mm-hmm.
and who I think he can have a similar story. I hope he has a similar end story as Bo Nix.
Okay.
Bo, he got torched and just killed at Auburn. And then he went out to Oregon, he got in the right system, and he blossomed. And so I'm hoping to see a Bo Nix 2.0 story. If we can get close to that from a production standpoint and a leadership standpoint, we win the Natty. We'd have won it last year, with the rest of the team that we have. So, but as far as, who does his game remind us of, I think you nailed it. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about that?
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I put in my notes that I sent to you that I like originally I thought of Trevor Lawrence, but I don't think he has the most like the size wise, they're similar, they're tall, they're lean, I think Will's probably a little bit heavier than Lawrence was, but I don't think he has the natural arm talent that like just the flick of the wrist kind of thing. And then so I jumped way back and thought about Tim Tebow, and I was like, no, that's too far back and doesn't make any sense because Will Howard's arm is better. And I thought of Josh Allen because they're both big and they run straight ahead in the QB power game. But then I landed on Will Levis because Will Levis has an incredible arm. He's got a strong arm. Will Howard has a strong arm. Will Levis is 6'4", 230. Will Howard is 6'4", 235. So that's where I got stuck. Ton of upside, kind of sometimes makes some questionable throws. You're wondering what he's doing or why he's doing it. And so I know sometimes last year too, like Will Howard, I think he had 10 picks, but I know that he wasn't really working with some of the talent and he tried to force some things and make some things happen. And I think that's, the riverboat gambler kind of thing, trying to make some stuff happen with, talent that he doesn't have at Ohio State where the guy isn't running 8 yards in front of the DB all the time. So I do think that, Will Levis is my comp for him for right now. And I hope that ends up being right because, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to have a Will Levis type, fiery, not afraid to run, big arm. And hopefully Ryan Day and others and Bill O'Brien, if he's around, can coach him into, not taking chances with the football. And if he can do that, he could have a really good year.
Yeah. And that's why I think the door's open for somebody like Devin Brown and for there to be a legit competition. Because if Howard gets in there in spring practice and he's turning the ball over, I mean, that's the quickest way to fall off Ryan Day's radar,
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. Now, I don't know how much you read between the lines, but I don't even know if you had to read between the lines. But with his press conference the other day, he kind of went out of his way to say that he's really not a fan of running as much as he did at K-State.
Mm-hmm.
And that he kind of had that conversation with Ryan Day. And on one hand, he's saying, don't get me wrong, I'm going to do what I need to do to help the team and I'll run when I have to run. But, I didn't come here to run the same system that we were in at Kansas State.
For sure.
I don't think he liked running as much as he did. With that being said, the highlight of him going, 75 yards against, Texas's defense with all that speed is still really, really enticing.
Yeah, absolutely. I got it. I picked up what he said. He said he felt like it was QB power right and QB power left. And that was his, I guess, playbook at Kansas State. And I don't think that we don't need that. What we need is 3rd and 7 and pick up 8 yards on a broken play against Michigan, or 4th and 1 at their 45-yard line going into halftime. and have a QB power that can just lean forward and pick up a first down. So that I think that's what we need. We needed it last year. Some of that's on the O line too, but yeah, I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you. So, final thoughts, Dan. They're yours.
Man, I'm just excited to be a part of this. I'm really grateful for the invite. It was just kind of random, how we connected on Twitter that day. And,
Yep.
I'm just super excited about this. I mean, to be able to have an outlet to talk about our passion, Buckeye football, Buckeye Nation, I'm
Yep.
super excited. I'm anxious to see what happens with O'Brien, this week and how Dave pivots. I wouldn't be surprised if he's got something lined up or ready. I mean, most good people got their plan B waiting. But yeah, man, I'm just super excited and, get on here a couple times a week with you and talk shop.
Absolutely. So that's a great final statement. So we are going to do Tuesdays and Fridays to start. We also discussed maybe doing some live stuff coming down the road as we catch on and get more and more into this as things news breaks and probably closer to the season. More news breaks tend to break during the week. So I thank you guys. I thank you, Dan, for being on with me, and it's been great to connect. And you guys have a good week. We'll see you on Friday. Take care from the best damn podcast in the land. See ya. Go Bucks. All right, we stopped recording.
All right. Now, I don't know why I've lost the screen. Like, I don't have an open window. Is there a timer on it?
No, it